Hey, Alexis, I'm so excited that you're here on the Sarah Hall Show, and I can't wait to highlight your story as a mom, as an entrepreneur. And I'd like to go ahead and just get into a quick introduction of who you are and, where you're from and all that good stuff so the viewers and listeners get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Sarah. So, I am Alexis Adams. I am a confidence and mindset coach for mamas. I have my background is actually in clinical mental health, and I've worked most of my time over the last few years, 5 years plus, I think, as a mental health therapist. And I have slowly kind of transitioned into the coaching world. I have been playing around with the idea, to be honest, for a couple of years now, and I finally took some action earlier this year because I realized, there's not much to be said about just having a dream without actually following through with it. And so part of my first steps was working with you, Sarah.
So let's talk about this 2-year thing because you know what? I did the same thing. And that's why I don't judge people when they come to me and they say, hey, I'm just kind of thinking about starting a business because I thought about it for a long time. But I'll tell you, that's my biggest regret is how long I thought about it because now, I'm almost 41 in February. My kids, my oldest is 16. And I'm like, I was thinking about it when my little one, who's 10, was a toddler. I was thinking about it when she was first born because I had to put her in daycare and it was a big ordeal. But I thought about it until she was 3 and my son was 8. You know what I mean? So I drug my feet, and my only regret now that I'm older, that my kids are older, that I've seen what happens for us as entrepreneurs. We can literally develop the life that we want, right? My only regret is that I waited those almost 2 years of just thinking about it. And I wondered if you had that same regret, or do you feel like, you know what, timing is what it is? And I think sometimes we do have to think that way. But I know for me personally, if I could look back, I would have started sooner.
I mean, I think I personally, I think everything happens in the right timing, right? So I think I needed to do some growing up and needed to do some life changes and things like that before I was ready to be the coach that I am now, right? So the last couple of years, I didn't even have my last daughter. I have 3 kiddos. And so I didn't even have my last daughter. And I feel like it was with her that I really had this mental shift of, I want to set an example for my kids. I would encourage them to fulfill their dreams. I would encourage them to do the things that they are passionate about. So why wouldn't I do that for myself? And that's really, what I advocate in with my moms even. But while I wouldn't necessarily go back 2 years ago, I think it was perfect timing because everything had lined up, as it should have. I definitely, kind of look back and laugh at how much I was hesitating at starting a business, even though I wanted to start a business for as long as I can remember. I kind of knew that was always my destiny. Have no reason really why that was my destiny, because no one in my family has started their own businesses. They're all kind of go with the flow kind of people. And so even though that was, something I had passionate about or was passionate about for a very long time, I just didn't have much direction with where I was going to go with that until earlier this year. And I realized that even with my clinical work, most of who I enjoyed working with was moms. They were who I could relate to. So most of my time actually in the clinical world was spent working with addictions clients, people who had struggled with mental health disorders as well as addiction, because often those go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. And as much as I had passion for that work, and as much as I was really good at it, not to toot my own horn here, but as much as I was really good at it because I'm very direct and, kind of the support that the individuals would need, I couldn't relate to that population in the same way that I can as a mom. And with my last daughter's birth, I realized I want to empower moms to challenge that norm of what being a mom is, right? I adore my mother. She's amazing. She's so great in so many different ways. But she often was very self-sacrificing. And I felt like I was falling short as a mom because I wasn't self-sacrificing. I did prioritize, getting my workouts in or doing some things for myself. And I wanted to empower other moms to do those sorts of things, which is why I'm passionate about the work I do. It's why I do the work I do. You know, martyr and mom are not synonymous.
So it sounds like you had this realization that, like, okay, I've been in my career a little while, had a couple kids, and you just became aware of who you wanted to work with, how you wanted to work with them. I feel like the same thing happened to me because my average client age was over 60 at a hospital that I worked at in the clinical world as well. And obviously you did more of the therapy side, I did more of the nutrition side, but I still felt like I grew as a dietitian, and I grew in who I wanted to impact and work with. And I was seeing like that was never going to change at my job. The other thing is, I was in this box of, a salary of like $68,000 a year. You know what I mean? And it's like, I knew I wasn't making the impact that I wanted at that point in my life or career. And as I grew as a mom, I also had all these financial goals that I could see that my salary box wasn't going to provide to us either. So I think there is something to be said about starting when the time is right. I do think sometimes we hold ourselves back, but I think in both of our situations, we just progressed in our life, and then that progressed our dreams. And then that said, okay, our job isn't going to get us to these goals. Our job isn't going to get us to our dreams. And it sounds like that is where you were at too. And that's why you started your business. So I want to move in a little bit though into how you help your clients, because when we talk about mindset and confidence, like literally, and I've told you this before, Alexis, like every single woman on planet Earth struggles with their mindset and their confidence. It doesn't matter if they're an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter if they're a stay-at-home mom. It doesn't matter if they're trying to get to the next level in their career. Maybe they're a real estate agent and they're like, dang, I got to get my mind and my confidence right so I can wear all these hats and I can accelerate in my real estate career. You know what I mean? And I feel like you have so many opportunities with who you work with, because like all women in general, but particularly moms, because we wear all these different hats, we often feel like we're falling short on one thing, whether it's our body and our workouts, or our, entrepreneurship career, or our regular career, or just being a mom, or maybe even a wife or a partner, right? So I want to talk a little bit about how you make breakthroughs with your clients when it comes to mindset and confidence, because that's a long journey for some women.
Yeah, absolutely. So oftentimes we don't even know what stands in our way, right? We're doing all the things. It should be enough, right? I use air quotes here of it should be enough, but we still feel like something's missing. And so much of that comes back to where your headspace is, right? It's sometimes the unseen that really plays the biggest impact, or makes the most impact, I should say. And so what I do with my mamas is we work on what barriers stand in the way of you taking the time that you need for self-care. What stands in the way of you being able to communicate with your partner for extra support, or with friends that you need extra connection, or that's not a boundary that you want to cross, or what have you, right? Like, we look at what's the deeper cause issue. I don't want to say that's neither one of those are really the right terms, but what's deeper rooted to all of this? Because you can keep putting out fires, but if you don't get to the source of it all, you're really just going to expend all your energy that you already are limited on. I mean, as moms, there's so little time in our day to even do the things that we feel like we have to do. So let alone the other things that we kind of occupy ourselves with. So really, when I work with a mom, we customize it to what are her needs, what are her goals. And my role is to hold her accountable to all of that while still getting to that deeper root. Because a lot of the times the moms I'm working with, they do listen to things that can be beneficial, like self-help stuff, or they read books or do meditations and things like that. And it's great because it's short-lived, but they don't really have it for long term, right? So it's this idea of they go through patterns of extremes where they're really committed to something and then it kind of fizzles out. So I help my moms to have sustainable results, have long lasting results, so that they can feel happier and more satisfied with their lives without putting extra pressure on them or adding one more thing to their to-do list that's already full. It's really customized to them, and it's what they want from their life.
So basically what I'm hearing is like a woman can be doing personal development. A woman can be journaling. A woman, can be reading books, but without bringing in, and this is how I feel about business, without bringing in troubleshooting, support, accountability, they often still struggle to apply those things they're learning. So that's when bringing in you as like the partner of like, hey, you can read all these books and you can do these journals and you can watch YouTube videos and listen to podcasts. But if you are struggling applying X, whether it's mindset principles, confidence principles, business principles, or even maybe somebody's trying to lose weight or get healthy, like applying it alone is, I think you used the word short-lived versus something that's more sustainable. I think that's what I'm understanding is like, they can do all these things and that's great and you want them to, but they need to work with you to be able to have the troubleshooting, the support, and the accountability to actually implement that change into their life.
Yes, absolutely. So actually, one of the things that I used to tell my therapy clients was, I'm not here to just sit and drink coffee with you and tell you everything that you want me to tell you. I'm actually here to do some work. And I follow that same principle with my mamas that I'm working with in my coaching capacity of, I am gentle, but I'm also going to be direct, because if you wanted a yes person, if you wanted somebody who was going to tell you what you wanted to hear, or who's going to tell you what you're doing is working, then you can turn to a friend or a family member or what have you. My hope is to produce results, to do something different. And in order to do something different, you have to, do something different. Or I'm sorry, in order to get something different, you have to do something different. And so the idea is that it is pushing you outside of your comfort zone in a gentle way, but you're not going to push yourself in that way. You need somebody else who can see kind of outside of yourself, who can see the bigger picture, see kind of where some blind spots might exist, and help take you there and guide you there so that you can actually have the results you've been trying for and, spending energy on. And you can usually get them quicker because you have somebody who can hold you accountable and see the full picture.
Yeah. And I mean, don't you think it's kind of this thing where women think, oh, I'll just eventually get confident on my own?
Mm-hmm.
Or, if I read enough books, I'll eventually like fix my mindset. Or even in business, it's like, oh, if I listen to enough people on the internet, I'll make money online, But I think so many times it's our fear of asking for help. I'm a very strong-willed woman. I know you probably are too. And when I first started, like, oh, I'll just figure it out because I'm resourceful, right? But when I hired my first coach to actually solve a problem, it was around 2016-ish. And I never stopped hiring people to solve a problem from there, Even if it's something as little as like when I built my house, I hired a designer for our furniture because I had all these things in my head and I had massive Pinterest boards. But to go out and do the legwork to find all that and put it all together, no. Like I'd rather pay someone that is great at it and can get me there faster, right? My whole house was done within a month versus me stressing for a year trying to figure out all the little pieces, right? Same as you, like you said, you can get the results faster for your clients. So instead of them wasting a lot of time and energy trying to like fix their mindset or their confidence on their own, I mean, the likelihood of that even being possible is slim to none, right? But the likelihood of someone making that change as fast and efficient and sustainable as with you, again, it's slim to none, So
Absolutely.
That's how I feel about the work you do. And like, I think women have to be willing to ask for help is the point that I'm making.
Absolutely. I mean, even when you and I began working together, I remember the first week I laid all of it out there and you were, just kind of very quick to do, okay, this, forget all of this, do this. And it was like, I've been working on this for 2 years now, Sarah. And in a week's time, you clarified all of that, made it simple, gave me some direction. Like I think the same can be said for other areas just beyond business, even though I think about my own life and personal experiences, which is, a big piece of why I went into coaching as well. Beyond the motherhood thing, I know that I wanted to use my life experiences to serve others. If I, kind of the thought process I had was, if I survive all of this, then I'm going to put it to good use. And so I know that in using those life experiences and having the experiences that I do, I would have never made it as far if I hadn't recruited other people other people outside of myself, other people who knew other information that, they specialized in. I would have never made it as far as I have if I hadn't recruited those supports, and you being one of them, Sarah.
Yeah, well, I've really enjoyed working with you too. And I think that I understand so much about mindset because I had to overcome my own and work with different, professionals over the years and read books. And still to this day, like the process of mindset and confidence, like I feel like it carries throughout the rest of your life. So the work you're doing with your clients literally changes the trajectory of the rest of their life, no matter what they do. You know what I mean? So I think it's amazing. And through this work, I'm sure you yourself, like as an entrepreneur, have overcome, like what's one of the biggest struggles you think that you have had to overcome so far in your entrepreneurship journey through your own process? Like what's one thing that you're like, man, that was a big one for me, or maybe something that is still in process that you're still working on?
I would say there's probably like two of them that I still work on. And that would be this idea of patience, right? My parents worked with me my entire life to try and teach me patience. I'm very much a 90 miles an hour at a brick wall is how my mom describes it. And then the other one is like going out of your comfort zone, right? I'm very stay in the box, stay in your lane, do what's right, kind of person, or I was always raised that way or brought up that way or what have you. And to be an entrepreneur, you have to be uncomfortable. You have to get out there and do things that you've never done to get the things you've never gotten. And it can be really scary to put yourself out there in such a way. But it's also super rewarding. And I've gotten to know myself so much better through the work I've done in the last few months alone than, not having done that, not having gone out on the comfort zone, not having, been taught these lessons. So I'm grateful for the work, even if it's hard.
Yeah, and I honestly feel like, kind of like with confidence and mindset, those two things just get better with time. And I had to learn to realize my first year, maybe my first 2 years were the hardest for me because I didn't know what to expect. And I hadn't seen the cycles of business. I hadn't seen the cycles of like, oh, if I do this during this time of year, this happens or this works. Or, like after my second year, I saw the same cycles being repeated. The summer months looking different than the holiday months looking different than January to May. And like, oh, if I have this certain situation with this type of client, it's typically repeated, when I can pick those things up in the personality of the next client that's similar. Like if I have a client that's similar to you and you guys have very similar characteristics and traits as far as personality, I started studying personalities. That way, when I handled a situation with client X, I could duplicate the situation in client Y. But I think the difference maker in patience and building confidence and getting out of your comfort zone is time. And most people just want to rush time. And I'm always telling you guys, in my coaching and also on social media, that time cannot be rushed. You cannot pop your mindset in a microwave like a popcorn bag and it be done in 3 minutes. Becoming a 6 or 7 figure entrepreneur, you can speed up that process, but you cannot pop it like a microwave popcorn bag. You know what I mean? And losing weight, learning intuitive eating, building confidence, all of these things take time. And we're so impatient. Yet most people that follow me or maybe even follow you probably have done some sort of thing that required time, right? Like, I don't know how many years you went. How many years did you go to college, for example, to become a therapist?
I finished my bachelor's in 3 years, and then I went on to my master's in 2, so 5 years. I mean, of just college. So yeah, 5 years.
Right. So you knew that process would be 5 years, and you said, "This is time. I know it's going to be 5 years, but I'll be a therapist at the end of it." And it's like when I became a dietitian, I had 4 years plus 2 years of a master's degree and internship. So I took 6 years and I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to these classes on this semester. I'm going to study. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do this for 6 years because I know I'm going to come out and be a dietitian. Mm-hmm. But in business, people, and in confidence and mindset, it seems like people aren't even okay with putting 6 months in and being patient, right? But we'll put 5 or 6 years in to get a college degree, So I think those biggest lessons you're talking about, the patience and stepping outside of your box, I do think they get better with time. And I think probably even over the last, 4 to 6 months, you're probably seeing that too. Like, oh, okay, I'm getting better, right? But
Yeah,
it may take you a year or two, just like it took you 5 years to get your degree. So I think
absolutely.
patience is so hard. I'm a naturally impatient person too. In fact, I think most entrepreneurs are naturally impatient. Like I'll ask my husband to do something and girl, within like 2 hours, if it's not done, like he's lucky I even wait 2 hours. I'm like, I'll just go do it myself,
Yeah, yep, that's totally me too.
Yeah. So that makes it hard when we're entrepreneurs, right? Because we want it and we're going to go do the work and we're going to bust through a brick wall, like you said. I love
Mhm.
that.
Yes.
Yeah. So those lessons are awesome. So I want to wrap up a little bit here. A couple more questions. What would you tell someone if they are, like you, a mom and maybe even one kid or three kids, or maybe someone that wants to have a family one day and wants freedom and they're struggling with their mindset and confidence to maybe start a business or to start any sort of transformation with their own mindset or confidence or their life. Like, what would be the thing you would tell them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say there's never going to be a right time. You'll come up with every excuse in the book. And you can, most people can make it pretty rational to have their excuses too, right? Like you can convince yourself pretty well to where it doesn't seem like any other option. Um, but a lot of that is just fear talking and doubt talking. And those are just feelings, not to undermine your feelings, but they're just feelings and they're only one piece of the puzzle. So do it anyway. Um, and the other piece is to get help. So you can do things solo, just as we talked about, right? But it's easier and more effective if you recruit support. And that support can be a lot of different things in a lot of different chapters of your life, but recruit support and recognize there's never going to be a right time. So do it anyway. Those would be, I think, the two biggest things, no matter what the change is, whether you're starting a business, having a family, um, you know, going off to college or choosing to, take a big trip or what have you. But there won't be a right time and to get help.
We talk ourselves out of so many great things, don't we? I was just thinking
Yes.
through what you're saying. Like, I've talked myself out of a lot of little things and I've waited for years to do
Mm-hmm.
things. And the older I've gotten, though, I just don't do that anymore. But I think it has a lot to do with like developing as a person, too. So, for anyone listening and watching, like, just that's Alexis's prime work is developing women as people and then greater people, right? Alexis can go out
Yeah,
and do greater things and do it with more
absolutely.
confidence, right? Like be a better mom, be a better spouse, be a better partner, be a better business owner, be a better career woman, like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
all of our goals are like at our fingertips. It's a matter of like developing our mind and our heart to like consistently go after those goals. And I think that's really wrapping up what you said today. Last thing though, I want to celebrate something with you. Is it something that's closing the year off or starting 2023? Like, what are you most excited about and want to celebrate on today's show?
I would say just like continued personal growth. That also I'm noticing like parallels a lot of my clients' growth. And what I mean by that is I learn just as much from my clients as they're learning from me. I am benefiting just from my clients as they are from me. And so it's really, I just constantly celebrate that. I constantly celebrate, that growth that happens kind of in the process, right? It's not about the destination, it's about the process and the journey. And so that I think is, a really big thing to celebrate, big or small.
Well, girl, I'm so proud of you. You're doing amazing. You're an amazing mom. You're an amazing entrepreneur. You're changing women's lives too. And I could not be more thankful to be working with you. So I'm so glad you were on today's episode. I really appreciate it. I know the listeners are going to enjoy the episode. So thank you so much for being on.
Yes, thank you as always, Sarah. You're always just so amazing, and I appreciate the time that you spend with me. It's always a pleasure.